So guys, there is an obvious, very obvious Zionist takeover of TPUSA. Okay, there is, guys. It was like instantaneous. Charlie gets shot. Netanyahu starts doing interview after interview, glazing Charlie. Then he's like, oh, we didn't kill him, I promise. It's like, really? Did anybody ask you if you killed him? You're like denying that you did this thing that nobody even asked you if you did. And then instantly, you know, Erika Kirk is the CEO. She is like a wailing wall, deeply evangelical, rapture-starting Christian. And now all of TPUSA is so like Zionist Trump that even their own followers are like, dude, what's going on with you guys? Okay? So there's some shit going on with Erika Kirk and Netanyahu. And guys, I would not be surprised if there's a Jeffrey Epstein connection here, because you got to remember that Benjamin Netanyahu's defense minister, Ehud Barak, who was a former prime minister of Israel, was like Epstein's fucking bestie. It's like Epstein and Ehud, Epstein and Trump, Epstein and Brunel, Epstein and Ghislaine. And so, dude, there is like the Charlie Kirk being eliminated to full-on $150 million Zionist cash influx into TPUSA and helping to bury the Epstein thing. It's not unbelievable, man. This is like, you know, this is the most believable thing out there. And again, I have a personal vendetta of like ending TPUSA because they are a lying, despicable child grooming organization.
In a typical scenario, when somebody's murdered in broad daylight and they have like, you know, $100 million organization behind them, it's common sense that you should check the people that work at that organization. Like that's like the first people that you should begin to investigate. So we reject your naval intelligence psychological operation where you tell us that that's a weird thing to do, okay? It's always somebody close to you. If there's a financial motive, yeah. And I would say an organization of that size that misses their deadline, their tax deadline for the first time, that's a little weird. Yes, they did. A YouTube channel known as Wolves and Finance did a report on this, which I'm going to show. Now, this wasn't the people that I was working with, and there is somebody else that I told you that I'm going to have on my show that has been looking into this for a while. But this was extremely well done and at least brought forth some big questions that I think are on a lot of people's minds. How does an organization that size just miss they filed for an extension and then miss the extension deadline to file? Let's take a listen to a part of what they had to say.
Let's go look at the 990 forms that Turning Point USA submits to the IRS every year. These contain their annual financial statements. When you look at the forms, there are some very strange anomalies. Several of the 990 forms are missing. Turning Point USA lists 4 related entities. There is Turning Point USA, Turning Point Endowment, Turning Point Action, and America's Turning Point. All different organizations do slightly different things. The Form 990 for fiscal year 2024 is posted for Turning Point USA, but it is missing for all the other 3 organizations. It looks like it was never turned in.
Interesting. This goes back to some of that money laundering fucking talk.
This is a massive red flag. So Tyler Boyer is being snarky on X.com and telling people to go look at the annual financial audit, but the financial audit is missing from last year for 3 of the 4 organizations. This strange decision to hide their financial statements happened 4 months before Charlie Kirk was murdered. I will repeat for clarity. Someone at Turning Point decided not to file 3 of the 4 of their annual financial statements 4 months before Charlie Kirk appointed a new COO, requested a new audit, and was murdered. Those 3 financial statements are still missing.
Whoa. Dude, think about that. TPUSA is missing financial statements. Charlie Kirk appoints somebody new to lead the organization, demands a new audit, and then ends up dead. Like, whoa, bro. And then next thing you know, Rob McCoy gets added to like the Wikipedia page. So something like some giant, massive amount of money moved through those organizations. And then like, I don't know, Charlie got off before he could figure out what it was.
So to be clear, that was another point that they gaslit me on when I told you that it was unusual that 7 days before Charlie died, he said that he wanted to establish Doge, right? Tyler came out and lied, and he said, this is just totally regular. And
see, that's crazy. Like a week before he died, he wanted to audit the organization.
Alex Clark said, oh, every year since I've been here, this is what we do. And the guy starts this video by being like, you have to be an idiot to accept that as an answer. Of course, doing an audit has nothing to do with internally establishing a Doge, right? He recognized that something was wrong at the organization. And as I told you, okay, because I do not miss on these things, he was not just concerned about where the money was going, he was concerned about where it was coming from. And what I can tell you about Charlie is that if Charlie got clued into something, if Charlie was at first trusting his lieutenant, and then he suddenly said, wait a second, what's going on over here? And he decided that he wanted to figure something out, he would have figured that ish out by sundown, okay? That is how brilliant he was. If it had his attention, he would have figured it out by sundown. What did Charlie discover is my question, okay? Now, to correct something that he says there, he says 4 months before, that's the regular tax deadline. It is actually normal. It is for big companies to file for a tax extension, but they missed that deadline as well. I think that was October 15th was a tax extension deadline.
Dude, she definitely loved him. Dude, I think they were an item, yeah. But she definitely said that in I Love Charlie voice, right? But dude, something is not right. You know what I'm saying? Those guys, like Andrew Colvett and Tyler Boyer, like those guys are dirty, okay? They are dirty. I see them lie every single day. They lie like Nick Sortor and Benny Johnson do. Tyler and Andrew Colvett, the guys that are the point men now for Turning Point USA, they like cover up rapes. They outright propaganda, absolute lies. I mean, they are like, they're so dirty, bro.
Line, they have missed them both, and that is completely abnormal. And he is correct. If you go back and you look at Turning Point USA's filings before, they always file all of them at the same time. So this is unusual that they've left off 3 of them. And I'm going to let him get into a deeper clip here where he discusses the quote unquote missing 8.6 million. Take a listen.
Let us look at the one financial statement we do have for fiscal year 2024 for Turning Point USA. Schedule I shows grants and other assistance to organizations, governments, and individuals in the United States. This schedule shows you where Turning Point is sending its money.
All right.
We see that a lot of money, $8,560,625, is being sent to America's Turning Point. They are sending it to their own shell company.
Weird. So Turning Point USA sent $8.6 million to one of their own companies that didn't file a schedule, didn't file their paperwork. Oh, that is fucking ding, 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 ding. Now, of course, did they not file this shit because they know Trump's IRS isn't going to audit? Like, this would be audited, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's weird. What the fuck? Where's this money, bro?
Now, this is not necessarily illegal, except for the fact that the financial statement for the other organization is missing. We cannot see how this $8.6 million is being spent. This is very important because there are strange variances around this money. I have pulled the last 5 years of 990 forms for Turning Point USA. Here is a table with contributions compared with the largest expense, which are the grants from Schedule I. You can immediately see a strange dip between 2022 and 2023. This dip happens because in prior years, they were sending money to Turning Point Endowment. They were transferring millions of dollars. This stopped in 2021, and they started ramping up sending money to America's Turning Point. Let's break this down. First of all, I find it really unethical that they were sending millions of dollars to their own endowment. I know that a lot of nonprofits do this, but I think it is unethical. Do the donors know this is how Turning Point is spending their money? Turning Point USA is taking in donations and then sending the money to their endowment to invest in the stock market.
Dude, see, that's crazy. Because think about this, guys. Think about the information we have about TPUSA and what their mission was. Okay, that evangelical billionaires were giving 𝗙lie Kirk money, and 𝗙lie Kirk was going to colleges to convert young people to Christianity. That was the goal. Convert young people to Christianity and Trumpism. So 𝗙lie Kirk goes out and says, hey, I'm using your money. I'm converting people. He comes back with all the proof of the conversion. Here, look at how many hats we gave away. Look at how many people showed up at our event. But meanwhile, they're taking that money and they're not spending it on the conversion. They're putting it into their own endowment and investing it. That's weird. Now, at this point, you have to wonder either the donors are giving this money to Turning Point trying to convert and he's investing it behind their back, or they're not even trying to convert. The conversion of kids is just a front and they're moving money into the stock market while claiming a tax credit on their donation to a 501c3, right? So either way, this is fucking dirty ass, bro.
In my opinion, they should be spending donations on operating their nonprofit, not on buying investments. As of fiscal year 2023, they had $61 million of assets in the endowment, which was generating $1.9 million a year of investment income.
Wow, $2 million a year being made off the investors' money that's supposedly being spent converting young people to Christianity.
Personally, I think that's an unethical way to run a nonprofit, but that's just my opinion. But what is important here is what happened to the missing $8.6 million, the amount sent to America's Turning Point in fiscal year 2024. The amount of money sent to America's Turning Point was getting larger and larger, and because the financial statements are missing, we cannot tell how this money was spent. If we look at the prior year, the majority of the money was spent on other salaries and wages. How is this possible when America's Turning Point reports 0 employees?
Dude, whoa. No employees, but they spent $3.7 million. Look at her face, bro. No employees, but $3.7 million got paid out. It is a slush fund, dude. What the fuck is going on? This place is a criminal organization.
Does anyone else think that sounds a little suspicious? In my opinion, what I think is happening is I think there are fake people on the payroll. I think that paychecks are getting sent to people who do not really exist. And that would explain why we have a company with 0 employees with millions of dollars of salary expense.
Yeah, that sounds highly suspicious to me, especially when you add in the fact that 𝗙lie wanted to establish a Doge 7 days before he died. And once you also add into the fact that they're all telling strange lies, when you also add in the fact that there is this weird psychological campaign to tell us not to look at Turning Point USA or we're going to go to hell, essentially. They're like using biblical passage.
See, I'm glad she brought that up because this is one of the things I have noticed about their entire campaign, right? Because if you notice 𝗙lie, he was like always a little bit street. He was out there being like a regular dude, even though he would use scripture. He wasn't like a Hail Mary kind of fucking weirdo. But like TPUSA now is really like, you're going to go to hell if you don't participate. We are doing the work of the Lord. Like it instantly became like super biblical. And I've noticed They're sharing all these videos of young people now being saved at high schools and shit. And this is one of the points that you may have seen. You're starting to see these preachers online who say, if you vote for the Democrats, there's no way you're going to heaven, right? They are starting to try to demonize every political option but the Republican Party. And it reminds me of what they were doing with money before the Reformation. Okay, the Catholic Church was selling indulgences. You need to pay money to get your sins forgiven. And they were just cash registering this shit. And so now, though, what happens is it feels like we're in the middle of another corruption thing where a lot of these mega church pastors are saying, if you don't vote for the Republicans and Trump, you're going to burn in hell. They're like using people's fear of hell to command them to participate politically in a way that brings them money and political power. It's fucked up, guys. I've never seen it like this. Like, there's always been an element of religion, but I've never seen it where a lot of the religious people on the right wing are literally saying, you have to vote for us or God is going to burn you in hell. It is like crazy talk that's happening, man. Like crazy talk.
He then goes on to describe how they conducted their own audit using a firm called Baker Tilly. I'll let him take it away.
What about Tyler Boyer's argument that they have an annual financial audit every year? If what I am saying is true, why wouldn't their annual audit catch these issues? The annual financial audit for Turning Point USA, Inc. and its affiliates was performed by an accounting firm called Baker Tilly. In the notes, they explain that they audited Turning Point USA, Turning Point Action, Turning Point Endowment, America's Turning Point, and TPUSA Merch.
Oh, dude! They audited the company that didn't turn in any money. This is going to be interesting.
That usually means they audited all the shell companies when they provided their opinion that the statements present fairly in all material respects. That means it is a clean audit with no problems. And just to clarify, Baker Tilly's audit opinion letter is signed after Turning Point missed the filing date with the IRS. So there is no excuse for Baker Tilly not to mention this in their audit opinion. Erika Kirk assumed the role of CEO of Turning Point USA on September 18th, 2025, 8 days after Charlie Kirk was murdered. She has been the CEO for almost 2 months. She needs to answer these questions. If someone has lied on the 990 form, people go to jail for that. I want some explanation of why Turning Point USA sent $8.6 million to their shell company and then did not file financial statements.
Dude, this guy is fucking pissed, bro. Dude, this guy like takes this shit seriously, dude. He's like CoffeeZilla on like double non-decaf, bro.
I think all valid points. And again, just to modify, it is possible that when they used that outside auditor, that they showed them all of the documentation and then they gave them a clean bill of health. And then for whatever reason, Turning Point decided not to file. It's possible.
It is possible, but those questions need to be answered.
Okay. Like I said, probably a low probability, but it is plausible that they did that. But it is just a fact that they missed the filing extension deadline. So what's going on here? Where did the $8.5 million go? And what's also compelling about this video, which we didn't show, is that he clarifies that Turning Point USA actually decreased their staff, the 501c3 arm, 33%, by 33%. So there was a 33% staff reduction. And yet the cost of salaries somehow went up. And to him, that looks suspicious. And I agree.
Yeah, dude, that's weird, right? I mean, in that one company, though, that one shell company, 0 employees, but $3.7 million in salaries. That is so dirty. But the crazy shit, though, guys, is like that they're doing it in Trump's tax year, where Trump's IRS is probably just not going to notice this. Like, this shit is dirty. And you know that fucking, like, TPUSA was getting investigated. They were getting looked at for financial improprieties already they were starting to get looked at.
That looks suspicious, right? And this, of course, is the kind of pressure that needs to be put on them. Yes, I said it was a very bad idea right off the bat for Erika, who's grieving her husband, to then instantly become a chairman and the CEO, because these are valid questions now that people are asking. And a chairman and a CEO is going to have to respond to those questions. You have to answer these questions when people are asking about money, especially given the fact that so many people, I mean, they cleared over $70 million in the first couple of weeks after Charlie was assassinated. Okay, that's a lot of...
Jesus, 70 million? And especially, guys, you need to be answering those questions when you're running around with that kind of bling on your goddamn hands, right? What the fuck is going on, bro? She's like, I only cry Bitcoin. 70 million they took in after Charlie died. What is up, guys? Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, you want to support independent resistance media, you know what to do. Drop that sub, hit the like button, and please share it. And we do love our members, so if you want to become a member, it's another really great way to support. Thanks again for everything, guys. I'll see you next time. Let's go.